Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're tackling a really tough, and for many, a deeply personal topic: Christian persecution around the world. We're going to start with some brand new, frankly startling data from 2025. But to really get a handle on what's going on, we're also going to dive into a landmark report from 2004 that, well, it kind of saw all of this coming.
So let's just start with a number. 1 in 7. That's it. 1 in 7. According to the latest data, that's how many Christians worldwide face persecution. Just let that sink in for a second. For every 7 Christians you can think of, 1 is facing pressure, discrimination, or worse, simply for their faith.
Now, what does that 1 in 7 actually look like in terms of real people? Well, if you zero in on just the top 50 countries where it's toughest to be a Christian, you're looking at 310 million people. 310 million. That's a staggering number of individuals living under what's classified as very high or extreme levels of persecution.
And look, we have to be direct about this. It can be absolutely fatal. In just the last year, we're talking about more than 4,476 people killed for faith-related reasons, gone.
Okay, so where is all this happening? This chart gives us a really clear picture. Persecution is a global issue for sure, but it is not evenly spread. You can see it's incredibly concentrated in certain places. In Africa, it's 1 in 5 Christians. And in Asia, wow, it's 2 out of every 5. That's massive. And believe me, there are reasons for that, which we're about to get into.
So what's behind all this? Here's what we're going to cover. First, that global snapshot. Then we'll get into the modern drivers behind it all. We'll look at the different contexts of persecution, how communities are responding, and we'll wrap up with a final, really important question.
All right, first up, a global snapshot. We've seen the numbers, and they are, frankly, shocking. But to understand why these numbers are what they are, we actually need to look back at an analysis that helped lay the groundwork for understanding this entire issue.
So now, let's talk about the modern drivers. And for that, we're turning to this key report from the Lausanne movement way back in 2004. It basically identified these big global trends that were fueling persecution. And spoiler alert, those trends didn't slow down, they sped up.
Okay, so the report lays out 4 big overlapping drivers. First up is globalization. The idea here is that as the world gets more connected, some cultures react against what they see as dominant Western culture, and Christianity often gets lumped in as the religion of the West. Then you've got resurgent nationalism. This is when being a true citizen of a country gets tied to a specific ethnic or religious identity. If you're a Christian, you can suddenly be seen as disloyal. Third, economic disparity. This creates resentment towards the wealth of the so-called Christian West, and it can put poor Christian minorities on the ground in a really tough spot. And finally, and this might surprise you, assertive secularism. In some Western contexts, there's a growing intolerance for any exclusive truth claims, which can lead to social and legal pressure against traditional Christians.
So those are the drivers, but what do they actually look like on the ground? Let's talk about the different contexts of persecution.
This table breaks it down really well into 4 major contexts. You've got the Islamic context, where Christians can be viewed as second-class citizens or even collaborators with the West. Then there's the communist context. Pretty straightforward, right? The state wants to control everything, including religion, so unregistered churches are seen as illegal. Third is what's called Hindu and other nationalist contexts. This connects right back to that driver of nationalism we just talked about. Converting to Christianity can be seen as a betrayal of your people, your identity. And finally, the secular context, where the pressure isn't necessarily from the state, but from a broader cultural hostility to exclusive truth claims.
And here's the key thing. These categories aren't neat little boxes. They bleed into each other all the time. The source material points to Vietnam as a perfect and really complex example. You've got communism, you've got nationalism, and you have cultural conflicts over things like ancestor worship, all coming together to create this intense pressure cooker for Christians there.
So you're facing all this. How do you respond? What do you do? Well, the source material breaks down 2 really distinct frameworks for how Christian communities address persecution.
And these 2 approaches can sometimes be in real tension with each other. On one hand, you have the human rights approach. This is all about external action. It uses tools like the UN's Declaration of Human Rights, diplomacy, and international campaigns to advocate for freedom. It's about changing the law and the system. Then you have the biblical approach. This is focused internally. It sees persecution as an expected, almost inevitable part of the faith journey. The focus isn't on changing the external circumstances, but on how suffering can actually purify and strengthen the church.
And if you want to understand the tension between these two views, look no further than this quote from the original report itself. The Bible is a higher authority for us than the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Wow, I mean, that one sentence just lays it all bare, doesn't it? It's the clash between a universal, human-made legal framework and a specific theological worldview.
So this all brings us to our final question, the big takeaway here.
At the end of the day, the real challenge is right here, at the intersection of two huge ideas. You have the universal right to be free from persecution, this modern idea we all hold dear. And then you have a faith tradition that can view suffering for your beliefs not just as a tragedy, but as a doorway to glory.
So the question we're left with is this, and it's not an easy one. How should a community respond when the universal right to be free from harm seems to clash with a theology of purposeful suffering? There's no simple answer to that. Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.